It started with a phone call I didn't expect. The screen lit up, the name Lisa Montgomery glowing against the dark background of my phone. I hadn't talked to Lisa since high school, barring the occasional Facebook like on old reunion photos or birthday wishes. We were friendly, sure, but not the kind of close where you'd call someone out of the blue. I almost let it go to voicemail. But there was something odd about the timing, 9:34 p.m. on a Wednesday. That wasn't, catching up for old time's sake, territory. It was the kind of hour when only bad news found you. I answered. Hello. I tried to sound casual, but Lisa's shaky inhale on the other end wiped that away. Matt, her voice cracked, raw and unsteady. Can we talk? Please. I didn't know who else to call. My stomach twisted. What's wrong? There was a pause, the kind that stretched a little too long. Then, in a rush of words, it's Sophia. She stole Josh. My boyfriend. I don't know what to do. Sophia. Her sister. I sat back on the couch, one hand gripping the phone, the other raking through my hair. This was definitely not the casual conversation I'd braced myself for. Wait, what? What do you mean she stole him? Like. They've been sneaking around, Lisa interrupted, her voice rising. Behind my back. 4 months, I think. I just found out, Matt. I confronted her, and she denied it, but I saw the texts. I saw everything. God, I feel so stupid. Her words came in waves, tumbling over one another. I could picture her, a mess of blonde hair and tear-streaked cheeks, pacing somewhere in her apartment. I shifted uncomfortably. I'm sorry, Lisa. That's awful. Have you talked to Josh about this? He won't even admit it, she snapped. He keeps saying it's complicated. What does that even mean? Complicated? Either you're faithful, or you're not. Fair point. I sighed, glancing at the empty beer bottle on my coffee table. Why are you telling me this? Another pause, this one heavier. Because you know us, Matt. You've known us both since high school. I need someone who isn't in the middle of it, someone who can help me figure out what to do. My chest tightened. I hadn't exactly signed up to play therapist. But something in her voice, the rawness of it, struck a nerve. Okay, I said finally. Let's meet up. Talk this out in person. Tomorrow. Tonight. Her response was immediate, almost desperate. Please. I can't sit here alone right now. I glanced at the clock. All right. Where? 30 minutes later, I was sitting across from her at Lou's Diner, a 24-hour spot that smelled like burnt coffee and overcooked bacon. Lisa looked wrecked. Her mascara was smudged, her hair tied back in a hasty ponytail. She clutched a cup of coffee like it was her lifeline. Thanks for meeting me, she said, barely looking up. No problem, I replied, though the truth was more complicated. I felt awkward, out of place in her storm of emotions. But curiosity had gotten the better of me. She stirred her coffee aimlessly. I loved him, Matt. You know that, right? Josh wasn't just some fling. We were talking about moving in together. I thought, her voice cracked, and she quickly wiped at her eyes. I leaned forward. What makes you so sure it's Sophia? Did you actually see them together? Lisa nodded, her movements sharp and angry. I saw the texts, Matt. I saw what he sent her, things he used to say to me. And she had the nerve to tell me I was overreacting, that it was just flirting. Flirting? With my boyfriend? Her bitterness filled the space between us. I wasn't sure what to say. Maybe, I hesitated, unsure how to tread. Maybe there's an explanation. Like, I don't know, maybe it isn't what it looks like. Lisa's glare could have cut glass. Don't you dare defend her. You don't know what it's like, growing up with Sophia. She's always taken what's mine. Always. It's like she can't stand seeing me happy. I blinked. That wasn't the Lisa I remembered, not the confident, no-nonsense girl who used to outshine everyone at debates. But then again, it had been years. People change. Okay, I said carefully. So what do you want to do about it? Her expression faltered. I don't know. That's why I need you. To talk to Josh. To figure out if it's all in my head, or if she's really trying to ruin my life again. Again. That word hung in the air. I frowned. Lisa, look, this isn't really my place, you know. I don't think me getting involved is gonna help. Please, she said, her voice softening. You're the only one I can trust right now. The weight of her plea settled on my shoulders. I could feel the cracks in her confidence, the desperation she was trying so hard to hide. All right, I said reluctantly. I'll talk to him. But don't expect miracles, okay? People aren't always honest when they're cornered. She nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped her cup. Thank you, Matt. Really. You don't know how much this means to me. As I walked out of the diner that night, the cold air biting at my skin, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just signed up for something far messier than I realized. The next morning, the whole situation felt like a fever dream I couldn't quite shake off. I sat at my kitchen table, nursing a lukewarm coffee and staring at my phone. Lisa's tear-streaked face kept flashing in my mind. Josh, I muttered under my breath. It felt strange saying his name out loud, like I was summoning a ghost from the past. We hadn't exactly stayed close after high school. We were friendly, sure, but he wasn't someone I'd think to call for a beer or advice. The guy was a smooth talker, charming in the kind of way that made you want to both be his friend and punch him in the face. I scrolled through my contacts, hesitating for a moment before pressing his name. It rang twice before he picked up. Matt Caldwell. His voice was bright, almost obnoxiously so. What's up, man? Haven't heard from you in forever. Hey, Josh, I said, trying to match his energy. Yeah, it's been a while. Thought I'd check in, see how life's treating you. There was a pause, then a laugh. Life's good, man. Same old grind, you know. What about you? Still chasing the corporate ladder? Something like that. I rubbed the back of my neck. Actually, I was wondering if you had time to grab a coffee or something. Catch up properly. Coffee? He sounded surprised. Sure. When? Today. I suggested, trying to keep my tone casual. If you're free. There was a brief silence, then, yeah, all right. Let's do it. Meet me at Bean and Barrel around 2. Sounds good. At 2:05 p.m., I walked into the Bean and Barrel, a cozy cafe with exposed brick walls and overpriced lattes. Josh was already there, lounging in a corner booth with his trademark grin. He looked the same as ever, tousled brown hair, a cocky tilt to his posture, and a wardrobe that screamed, laid back but trying too hard. Matt, he called, waving me over. I slid into the seat across from him, forcing a smile. Hey, man. Long time. Too long, he agreed, taking a sip of his iced coffee. So, what's new? Still breaking hearts with that square jaw of yours? I laughed awkwardly. Yeah, not so much. Listen, Josh, I wanted to talk to you about something. His smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. Oh yeah? What's up? I hesitated, trying to find the right angle. It's about Lisa. Josh's expression didn't change, but I noticed the way his grip tightened on his cup. Lisa? What about her? Well, I took a deep breath. She's been saying some stuff. About you and Sophia. His eyes flickered, just for a second. Stuff. She thinks you two have been seeing each other, I said, watching his reaction carefully. Behind her back. Josh leaned back in his seat, letting out a low whistle. Wow. Didn't see that coming. You didn't? I asked, skeptical. He shook his head, running a hand through his hair. Matt, come on. Lisa's always been a little intense, you know. She jumps to conclusions. This is probably just one of her overreactions. Is it? I pressed. Josh sighed, looking genuinely annoyed now. Look, man, I'm not saying she's crazy, but she can get a little possessive. Me and Sophia. We've talked, sure. But it's not what Lisa thinks. There's nothing going on. I frowned, not entirely convinced. Then why not just tell her that? Why let her spiral like this? Because she won't listen, he snapped, his voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. Every time I try to explain, she twists it into something else. I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. I studied him for a moment. He sounded sincere, but there was something in his tone, a subtle defensiveness, that made me uneasy. All right, I said finally. If that's the case, maybe you should just stop talking to Sophia altogether. Give Lisa some peace of mind. Josh laughed bitterly. You think it's that simple? Sophia's complicated. She's been going through some stuff lately. I can't just cut her off. Stuff like what? He hesitated, then shook his head. It's personal. Look, I get why Lisa's upset, but she's making this a bigger deal than it is. Trust me, Matt. I'd never do that to her. I nodded slowly, though I wasn't sure if I believed him. Later that evening, I decided to text Lisa. Talk to Josh. He says there's nothing going on with Sophia. Her reply came almost instantly. Lisa, of course he said that. He's lying. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. This was turning into more of a mess than I'd anticipated. He said Sophia's going through something. Any idea what that's about? Another long pause. Lisa, no. She doesn't tell me anything anymore. She just does whatever she wants. Always has. There was something in her tone, even through text, that felt off. Like this wasn't just about Josh. I thought about leaving it there, but curiosity got the better of me. Are you sure this isn't about more than just Josh? This time, there was no response. The next day, as I was about to head out for work, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Unknown, stay out of this, Matt. It's not your problem. My chest tightened. I stared at the message, my mind racing. Was it Sophia? Josh? Someone else entirely? The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Whatever I'd gotten myself into, it was clear now, I was in over my head. I stared at the cryptic text message long after the screen dimmed, the words burning into my brain. Whoever sent it, Sophia, Josh, or someone else entirely, wanted me out of this tangled mess. But if they thought a vague warning would scare me off, they didn't know me very well. The problem was, I didn't know what to do next. I spent the morning replaying my conversations with Lisa and Josh in my head, trying to make sense of their stories. Lisa was desperate, clinging to her version of the truth like it was the only thing holding her together. Josh, on the other hand, was slippery, a little too smooth in his denials, like he'd rehearsed them. And then there was Sophia, the missing piece of the puzzle. If I wanted answers, I needed to hear her side of the story. By the time I arrived at the local farmer's market that afternoon, my nerves were already shot. Lisa had insisted on meeting there, claiming it was neutral territory. I wasn't sure how neutral a place filled with organic kale and homemade candles could be, but I agreed. I spotted her near a stall selling fresh berries, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She was wearing oversized sunglasses and an old hoodie, looking more like someone trying to avoid being noticed than someone casually browsing for produce. "Hey," I said, walking up to her. Lisa turned, her expression grim. "Thanks for coming. Did you hear anything else from Josh?" "Not since yesterday," I admitted. "But I think we need to talk to Sophia." Lisa stiffened. "Why?" "Because this whole thing doesn't add up," I said. "If she's really the one sneaking around with Josh, then we need to hear it from her. And if she's not, we need to figure out why Josh is acting so weird about it." Lisa hesitated, chewing on her lip. "She won't talk to me. Not about this." "Then maybe she'll talk to me," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Lisa's eyes narrowed behind her sunglasses. "You're serious about this, aren't you? About figuring out the truth?" "Yeah," I said. "But I need your help." She sighed, pulling out her phone. "Fine. I'll text her. But don't say I didn't warn you." Later that evening, Lisa, Josh, and Sophia all ended up in the same place, a barbecue hosted by a mutual friend. It wasn't the kind of setting I would have chosen for a confrontation, but Lisa insisted it was perfect. "She won't make a scene in public," she said. I wasn't so sure about that. I arrived early, grabbing a beer and staking out a spot near the grill. The smell of charred burgers and the hum of casual conversations filled the air, but my attention was locked on the door. Lisa showed up first, looking tense but determined. She spotted me and gave a small nod before blending into the crowd. A few minutes later, Josh walked in, all smiles and handshakes, like he hadn't been accused of cheating 2 days ago. And then came Sophia. She was the kind of woman who turned heads without trying, long auburn hair, piercing green eyes, and an effortless confidence that made people gravitate toward her. She didn't look guilty. If anything, she looked completely unbothered, like she was walking into any other party. "Matt," she said brightly when she spotted me. "It's been ages." "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "It has." She tilted her head, studying me. "You look serious. Everything okay?" I glanced over her shoulder, where Lisa was glaring at us from across the yard. Josh was a few feet away, pretending to check his phone but clearly listening. The tension was palpable. "Actually, Sophia," I said, forcing a smile, "do you have a minute to talk?" She raised an eyebrow, her expression shifting slightly. "Sure. What's up?" "Somewhere private," I added, nodding toward the quieter side of the yard. She hesitated but eventually followed me. Once we were far enough from the crowd, I turned to face her. "Lisa thinks you're having an affair with Josh," I said bluntly. Sophia blinked, her face a mixture of shock and amusement. "What?" "She says she found texts," I continued. "Between you and him. Stuff that made it pretty clear something's going on." Sophia laughed, the sound sharp and unexpected. "Oh my God. Is that what this is about?" "She's insane, Matt. You know that, right?" "Is she?" I asked, watching her closely. "Because Josh hasn't exactly denied it, and you've been acting pretty secretive lately." Her smile faded, and for a moment, something flickered in her eyes, guilt, maybe, or something close to it. "Look," she said, crossing her arms. "Josh and I are friends. That's all. If Lisa wants to twist that into some big betrayal, that's her problem, not mine. But why didn't you just tell her that?" I pressed. "Why let her think the worst?" Sophia sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "Because she doesn't listen, Matt. She never has. Lisa sees what she wants to see, and no amount of explaining changes that. If I told her the truth, she'd just accuse me of lying. And the truth is. She hesitated, then leaned in slightly. Josh has been coming to me for advice. About Lisa. He's not happy, Matt. He thinks she's too controlling, too jealous. I was trying to help him, but clearly, that backfired. I frowned, my mind racing. It sounded plausible, but something about it didn't sit right. So you've been texting him, I said slowly. Yes, she admitted. But not like that. I would never do that to Lisa. Her voice was steady, confident. But was it the truth? The night only got worse from there. When I told Lisa what Sophia said, she exploded, storming across the yard to confront her sister. Josh tried to intervene, but that only made things worse. Within minutes, the three of them were locked in a heated argument, their voices rising above the din of the party. I stood on the sidelines, watching the chaos unfold. Sophia accused Lisa of being paranoid. Lisa accused Sophia of being a liar. Josh tried to play the peacemaker, but his attempts only fueled Lisa's anger. You're unbelievable. Lisa shouted, tears streaming down her face. You always do this, Sophia. You always find a way to ruin everything. And you always find a way to play the victim, Sophia shot back. Enough. Josh finally snapped, his voice cutting through the noise. This is ridiculous. I'm not choosing sides, okay? You're both acting crazy. The silence that followed was deafening. Lisa turned on her heel and walked away, her shoulders shaking. Sophia stood frozen for a moment before brushing past me without a word. And Josh? He just stood there, staring at the ground like he'd finally realized how deep a hole he'd dug for himself. I didn't know what to think anymore. The barbecue left a bitter aftertaste I couldn't shake. The image of Lisa storming off, her face a mix of fury and heartbreak, stayed with me as I drove home. Sophia's smug deflection and Josh's pathetic attempts at diplomacy weren't much better. I was caught in the crossfire of something that went deeper than stolen boyfriends or sibling rivalries. Something wasn't adding up, and I was done sitting on the sidelines. The next morning, I got a text from Lisa. Lisa, thanks for trying last night. I need to show you something. I frowned, rereading her message. Show me what? Before I could reply, another message came through. Lisa, meet me at my place at 10. Lisa's apartment was small but cozy, with mismatched furniture and the faint scent of lavender candles. When she opened the door, her eyes were red-rimmed, but her expression was set with determination. Come in, she said, motioning me inside. What's this about? I asked, stepping into the living room. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she grabbed her laptop from the coffee table and opened it, gesturing for me to sit beside her. I told you I saw the texts, she said, her voice low. But I didn't just see them, I saved them. She clicked on a folder, then opened a series of screenshots. My stomach twisted as I scanned the messages. Josh, can't stop thinking about last night. You looked amazing. Sophia, you're sweet. Lisa's so lucky to have you. Josh, wish it was you instead. Another exchange. Sophia, what if she finds out? Josh, she won't. Not unless you tell her. Lisa sat back, crossing her arms. Still think I'm crazy? The evidence was damning. The timestamps on the messages went back months, long before Lisa's suspicions had taken root. I rubbed my temples. Why didn't you show these to Josh? Or Sophia? I tried, she snapped. Josh just brushed it off, said I was misinterpreting things. And Sophia, she's a pro at turning things around. She'd just deny it, like she always does. I glanced at the screen again, a knot forming in my chest. This doesn't make sense. Why would Josh send this kind of stuff if he was trying to keep things platonic? And why would Sophia reply like that if there wasn't something going on? Lisa shook her head. Because she can't help herself. She doesn't care about me, Matt. She never has. I told you, this isn't the first time she's done something like this. Her voice broke slightly on the last word, and she quickly looked away. What do you mean? I asked gently. Lisa hesitated, her fingers tightening around the edge of the laptop. There was a guy in high school, she said finally. I was crazy about him. And he liked me too, at least, I thought he did. But then Sophia swooped in, and suddenly, it was all about her. She stole him, Matt. Just like she's stealing Josh now. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I remembered that guy, Jake something or other star. Lisa had been head over heels for him, and then one day, out of nowhere, he'd started dating Sophia. I'd never thought much of it at the time, but now it painted a pretty ugly picture. Later that afternoon, I decided to confront Sophia myself. She wasn't hard to track down, her Instagram was a roadmap of trendy coffee shops and yoga studios. I found her at a cafe downtown, sipping on an iced matcha and scrolling through her phone. Sophia, I said, sliding into the seat across from her. She looked up, startled. Matt? What are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, keeping my voice steady. About Josh. Her expression hardened. I already told you, there's nothing going on between us. Cut the crap, Sophia, I snapped, pulling out my phone. I opened one of the screenshots Lisa had sent me and placed it on the table. Explain this. Her face paled as she stared at the messages. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, with a deep breath, she looked up at me. It's not what it looks like, she said quietly. Then what is it? I demanded. Because it sure looks like you and Josh have been sneaking around behind Lisa's back. Sophia hesitated, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her cup. Josh and we're not having an affair. I swear. Those messages, they were stupid, okay? Flirting that got out of hand. But it didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything. I repeated, my voice rising. Sophia, you told him Lisa might find out. You called him sweet. You let him say he wanted to be with you instead. How the hell is that meaningless? Her eyes flashed with anger. Because I didn't do anything, Matt. I didn't sleep with him. I didn't kiss him. I didn't even meet him outside of group settings. It was just texts. And yeah, maybe it was wrong, but I didn't cross that line. I stared at her, my frustration boiling over. Do you have any idea what you've done to Lisa? She's falling apart because of you. And Josh, he's using you to justify his own lies. You're both guilty. Sophia's face crumpled, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. But then she straightened, her jaw set. You don't understand, she said. Lisa, she's not the victim you think she is. What are you talking about? I asked. She's been cheating on Josh, Sophia said flatly. 4 months. With some guy from her office. That's why Josh started talking to me in the first place. He was hurt, confused. He needed someone to talk to. I froze, her words crashing over me like a tidal wave. You're lying, I said, though my voice lacked conviction. Sophia shook her head. Ask her. Better yet, ask Josh. He knows. He just didn't want to say anything because he thought it would make him look bad. My mind spun, trying to process what she'd just said. Could Lisa really be hiding something that huge? By the time I left the cafe, I felt like I was drowning in unanswered questions. Lisa's pain, Josh's evasiveness, Sophia's deflections, they were all pieces of a puzzle I wasn't sure I wanted to solve anymore. But one thing was clear, someone was lying. And I wasn't leaving until I found out who. I sat in my car outside Lisa's apartment, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Sophia's words echoed in my head. She's been cheating on Josh. 4 months. It didn't make sense. Lisa had seemed devastated, genuinely heartbroken. But the way Sophia had said it, with that quiet conviction, made me question everything. I had 2 options: confront Lisa outright or try to verify Sophia's claim some other way. I chose both. Lisa opened the door looking exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. "Hey," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "What's up? Did you talk to Sophia?" "Yeah," I said, walking past her into the living room. "I did." She followed me, her expression wary. "And? What excuse did she give you this time?" I turned to face her, crossing my arms. "She says you've been cheating on Josh." The color drained from Lisa's face. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "That's ridiculous," she finally said, her voice shaking. "She's lying. She's trying to make me look bad so you won't believe me." "Is she?" I asked, studying her closely. "Because she seemed pretty certain. And honestly, Lisa, the way Josh has been acting, it almost makes sense." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. "I didn't cheat, Matt. I would never do that. I loved Josh. I still do." "Then why would she say that?" I pressed. "Why make something like that up?" Lisa shook her head, her hands trembling. "Because she's jealous. She's always been jealous of me. She can't stand it when I'm happy." It was the same argument she'd made before, but this time it didn't sit right. I thought about the texts Lisa had shown me, damning evidence, sure, but also carefully curated. Could she have been hiding something? "I need you to be honest with me, Lisa," I said, my voice softer now. "If there's anything you're not telling me, now's the time." Her tears spilled over, and she wiped them away angrily. "You don't believe me," she whispered. "After everything I've told you, you still don't believe me." "It's not about that," I said quickly. "I just want the truth." She stared at me for a long moment, then turned away, her shoulders shaking. "You should go," she said quietly. "Lisa." "Just go, Matt," she snapped, her voice breaking. "I can't do this right now." I left her apartment feeling more conflicted than ever. If Lisa was lying, she was doing a damn good job of hiding it. But Sophia's accusation still lingered, gnawing at the edges of my mind. I decided to talk to Josh again. If anyone could confirm or deny the cheating claim, it was him. Josh agreed to meet me at a bar downtown, though he seemed less enthusiastic this time. He was nursing a beer when I arrived, his posture tense. "This better not be about Lisa again," he said as I slid into the booth across from him. "It is," I said bluntly. "But it's also about Sophia. She told me Lisa's been cheating on you." Josh froze, his beer halfway to his lips. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then he set the bottle down and let out a bitter laugh. "So she finally said it, huh?" My stomach sank. "So it's true." Josh leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "Yeah, it's true. At least, I think it is. I never caught her in the act, but I saw enough to know something was going on. Late-night texts, sketchy excuses. I even saw her flirting with some guy at a work event once." "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked, shocked. "Because I didn't want to be the bad guy," he said bitterly. "If I called her out, it would have blown up, and everyone would have blamed me. And then Sophia, she was there for me, you know. She listened." My mind raced, trying to reconcile this new information with everything else I'd learned. If Lisa had cheated first, that didn't excuse Josh's behavior, but it did complicate the narrative. "Do you still care about her?" I asked. Josh looked down at his beer, his expression unreadable. "I don't know," he said quietly. "Maybe I did once. But now, I don't know if there's anything left. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every conversation, every accusation, every denial played over and over in my head. Lisa had been so convincing in her pain, her anger. But if she really had cheated, then everything she told me about Josh and Sophia was tainted. Sophia had admitted to crossing a line with Josh, but she swore it hadn't gone further than texts. Could I believe her? And Josh? Josh was a mess of contradictions. Guilty and defensive one moment, sincere and vulnerable the next. The truth was buried somewhere in this tangled web of lies, but I was running out of ways to dig it up. Then, just as I was about to give up for the night, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Lisa. Lisa, you were right. I wasn't honest with you. Meet me tomorrow, and I'll tell you everything. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Finally, the truth was within reach. Lisa's text had kept me awake most of the night. I lay there in the dark, turning her words over in my head. If she really planned to confess, it meant everything, every accusation, every tearful claim, might have been a carefully constructed half-truth. The next morning, I arrived at Lisa's apartment feeling like a man walking to his execution. The air was thick with tension as I knocked on her door. She opened it slowly, her face pale but composed. "Come in," she said quietly. I stepped inside, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. The living room felt smaller than before, as if the walls were closing in. Lisa motioned for me to sit, but I stayed standing. "What do you want to tell me?" I asked. Lisa took a deep breath, avoiding my gaze. "I haven't been completely honest with you," she said, her voice trembling. "There's some truth to what Sophia told you." My chest tightened. "About you cheating on Josh?" She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. It wasn't like how she made it sound. It wasn't a long affair or anything. It was one stupid mistake. One night. "Lisa," I said, my voice low, "why didn't you tell me this from the beginning? Why let me think you were completely innocent?" "Because I was scared," she burst out, her voice breaking. "I was scared you'd take their side. Scared you'd think I deserved what they did to me." I stared at her, my emotions warring between anger and pity. "You let me confront Josh, confront Sophia, knowing you weren't telling me the whole story. Do you have any idea how much of a mess you've made?" Lisa's face crumpled, and she sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "I didn't know what else to do," she whispered. "I thought if I could just make them the bad guys, it would be easier to deal with." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't about finding the truth or fixing things, it was about control. About spinning the story in her favor. "Lisa," I said slowly, "you're not the victim here. You started this. And instead of owning up to it, you dragged me into your mess." She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "I made a mistake, Matt. But that doesn't mean I deserve this. Josh and Sophia, they betrayed me. That's real. Is it?" I asked, my voice sharp. "Or are they just the convenient scapegoats for your guilt?" Lisa flinched, and for a moment, I thought she might argue. But then she slumped back against the couch, silent. I left her apartment feeling angrier than I had in years. The whole situation was a toxic stew of lies, half-truths, and selfishness, and I was sick of being stuck in the middle of it. But there was one more piece of the puzzle I needed to confront. Josh agreed to meet me at the park later that afternoon. He looked wary when I approached, like he knew what was coming. "Lisa told me everything," I said without preamble. Josh sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "So you know she cheated. And I know you used that as an excuse to start something with Sophia," I shot back. Josh winced. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it?" I demanded. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like the two of you were looking for any excuse to justify your behavior. Josh sat down on a nearby bench, staring at the ground. Maybe you're right, he said after a long pause. I was hurt, angry. I felt like Lisa didn't care about me anymore, so when Sophia started reaching out, it was easy. Too easy. That doesn't make it okay, I said. I know, he said quietly. But it's the truth. I sighed, sitting down beside him. Josh, you need to end this. With Lisa, with Sophia, both of them. This whole thing is toxic, and it's not going to get better. He nodded slowly. I know. I didn't want to hurt anyone. You already have, I said bluntly. Josh didn't argue. The final confrontation came 2 days later. Lisa, Sophia, and Josh all met me at a quiet spot in the park, at my insistence. The atmosphere was tense, the three of them avoiding each other's eyes as they sat down. We're not doing this to rehash old arguments, I began. We're doing this to end it. Lisa crossed her arms, glaring at Sophia. She's the one who needs to end it. Don't start, Sophia snapped. You're the one who cheated first. Enough. I barked, silencing both of them. This isn't about who's worse. It's about taking responsibility for the mess you've all created. I turned to Lisa. You lied to me, Lisa. You dragged me into this without telling me the full truth, and you used me to fight your battles. That's not fair. Her face flushed, but she didn't respond. I turned to Sophia. You might not have slept with Josh, but you knew what you were doing. You knew those texts were crossing a line, and you kept going anyway. Sophia looked away, guilt flickering across her face. Finally, I turned to Josh. And you? You had the chance to be honest, to stand up for yourself, but you took the easy way out. You let things spiral out of control because you didn't want to deal with the fallout. Josh nodded, his shoulders slumping. I'm done playing referee, I said, standing up. This is your mess, not mine. Fix it, or don't. But I'm out. Without waiting for a response, I walked away, leaving them to sort through the wreckage of their relationships. A week later, I got a text from Josh. Josh, Lisa and I ended things. Sophia and I aren't talking anymore either. You were right, this whole thing was a mess. Thanks for calling me out. I didn't reply. Some things are better left behind.